My name is Elena Morris. I'm 26, and I never expected my entire family to disown me the day I turned 19, with nothing but a trash bag full of clothes and the echo of my mother's voice saying, "This isn't your home anymore." If you've ever felt overlooked or betrayed by your own family, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Like this video and subscribe for more stories like this. It started on a Wednesday, a quiet, cloudy morning. No birthday cake, no breakfast, no hugs. Just a thick manila envelope waiting for me at the kitchen table. No card, just a note that said, "Consider this your notice." I thought it was a joke, until I opened it and saw a formal termination of guardianship, notarized, signed, and dated by both my parents. It stated that since I was now legally an adult, I had 24 hours to vacate the premises. They even included a folded list of women's shelters and bus routes. The only person who looked at me as I stood there shaking was my older brother Dean, lounging on the couch in his new leather jacket, sipping a smoothie our mom had made him. He didn't even blink when I said, "You're seriously kicking me out?" He just shrugged. "It's not like you ever really contributed anyway." I was 19. I had just finished my first semester in community college while working late nights at a diner. I had spent the past 3 years helping raise my twin siblings, skipping out on dances, clubs, and any kind of social life to stay home with them when mom was tired and dad was drinking. None of that mattered now. By nightfall, I was standing outside with a trash bag of clothes, a cracked phone, and $68 in my account. They didn't even let me keep the pillow from my bed. And that was the last time I stepped foot in that house. I spent the next week on the floor of my coworker's studio apartment. She barely knew me, but she let me stay. Her name was Tasha, and to this day, I still don't know why she said yes. Maybe it was the way I didn't cry. I just sat on her floor in silence, wrapped in a blanket, rereading the letter. I didn't even ask for revenge, not then. But something snapped in me the day I saw a family photo on Facebook, all of them smiling at my brother Dean's engagement party. The caption read, "Our family whole and happy." Whole. That word burned, as if I never existed. As if everything I did, every diaper I changed, every time I missed school for someone else's need, was just erased. I didn't cry. But I did write something down. Just 3 lines, 3 quiet steps. Not for revenge, not yet, but because I needed a reason to keep going. Step 1. Find a roof I don't have to apologize for. Step 2. Learn every skill no one ever taught me. Step 3. One day, never knock again. I folded that paper and put it in my wallet, and then I got up. And I started walking toward the woman I was going to become, the one they never imagined. The thing about being kicked out is, it's never just about that one moment. It's about everything that came before. Like when I was 8 and made the honor roll, and my mom barely looked up from helping Dean polish his 5th-place soccer trophy. Or when I got strep throat and missed a week of school, but still babysat the twins while my parents went to Dean's piano recital. He wasn't even that good, but they clapped like he was Beethoven reborn. My entire childhood was a soft background hum of being useful, not loved, reliable, not remembered. By the time I was 14, I had a mental checklist of everyone's schedules, favorite meals, allergies, and moods, but no one ever asked me what I wanted for dinner. I remember my 16th birthday. Everyone forgot. They were too busy planning a surprise party for Dean's college acceptance. He got into a state school. I got a burnt grilled cheese sandwich and the leftover decorations from his party the next day, still smeared with his name in glitter letters. No apology, no recognition. Just a pat on the head and a tossed off, "Don't be so sensitive, Elena." That became the family motto anytime I asked for anything. Don't be so sensitive. When I got a part-time job, they asked if I could pay half the electric bill. When Dean crashed my car, they told me it was my fault for leaving the keys in the bowl. When the twins got lice, I was the one they blamed for not watching them close enough, even though I was working back-to-back shifts to afford textbooks. But here's what no one saw. All those years of being invisible gave me one advantage. I learned to watch, to study what people needed, even if they didn't say it. To notice patterns, to read between the lines. It's what made me a great server. It's what helped me land a second job at a real estate office, filing papers and making coffee, until the manager noticed I had a knack for details. He started letting me sit in on contracts. I asked questions, took notes, stayed late. One night he handed me a business card and said, "You're smarter than half my agents. Get licensed. I'll sponsor you." I worked my way up from coffee girl to agent assistant, then to open house runner, then, 2 years later, to signing my first listing. It was a single-bedroom cottage in a quiet neighborhood. Not glamorous, but mine. Every sale after that went toward one thing: stability. By 24, I was doing well enough to rent a condo and breathe, without worrying the floor might disappear under me. But I never stopped thinking about that house. Their house. The one they threw me out of. The one with the peeling porch, the creaky hallway, and the chipped tile in the bathroom I used to clean every Sunday. One morning, I got a call from a colleague. She was laughing. "Elena, guess who just listed their property with us? Some family on Briarwood Lane. Looks like they're underwater on the mortgage." Briarwood. I already knew. I asked for the address anyway. When she said it, I smiled for the first time in days. My childhood home. The one they kicked me out of. It was for sale. And no one knew I was about to buy it. I didn't jump at the listing. That would have been too easy. Instead, I called my broker and asked to buy it through a shell LLC, one I'd already set up for investment purposes, just in case. I didn't want my name tied to the sale until everything was official. 2 weeks later, the house was mine. The paperwork came through on a Thursday morning. I stared at the deed for a full minute before touching it. The same name that once wasn't enough to stay under that roof was now stamped across the bottom: Elena Morris, property owner, sole beneficiary. No more permission, no more knocking. I didn't tell anyone, not even Tasha. Instead, I drove past the house every day for a week, watching them pack. They didn't recognize me. It had been years, and I didn't look like the girl they threw out in a hoodie and sneakers. I wore tailored coats now. Soft leather gloves. No makeup, but I didn't need it anymore. I had presence. A quiet kind of power that didn't need shouting. And still, watching them move out of that house, it didn't feel like revenge. It felt like justice breathing through my lungs. But the final confrontation wasn't the way I expected. It came weeks later, after I had already changed the locks, renovated the kitchen, and painted over every crack they used to blame on me. There was a knock at the door. Firm. Rhythmic. I knew before I looked who it was. I opened the door halfway. There they were, all three of them. My mother in a raincoat, my father behind her, arms crossed, and Dean, looking thinner than I remembered. No one said hello. No one apologized. Instead, my mom peered behind me like she owned the place and said, "So when were you going to tell us you bought our house?" I didn't blink. I wasn't. Dean stepped forward. "This isn't right. That house was in our family for 20 years. I looked at him. At the man who once laughed when I cried at the curb. The man who took my car, my space, and half my teenage years. You forfeited that when you sold it. It was supposed to be temporary." My mom hissed. "We planned to buy it back." I almost laughed. Instead, I stepped outside and closed the door behind me. "You told me I didn't belong here. That was years ago," she said quickly. "You were being dramatic?" "No," I said. "I was being discarded." They stood in silence. Then my father muttered, "We thought maybe you'd let us stay, just until we find something." I looked down at the steps, the ones I used to scrub every spring, then back up at the faces of the people who watched me disappear without flinching. I said nothing, just stepped aside and walked back inside. Then I closed the door, quietly, and locked it. That night, I sat in the old living room, sipping tea. The silence didn't feel cold. It felt earned, like every ignored birthday, every lonely graduation, and every whispered insult had finally found its answer. Not through shouting, not through revenge, but through quiet ownership, literal and emotional. I didn't win. I reclaimed. And it was enough. I didn't tell anyone what happened on the porch. Didn't need to, because 3 days later the voicemail started. First, from Dean. "Elena, come on. You made your point. Can we talk?" Then from Mom. "We're your family. This isn't how you treat family." The irony made me smile. The same woman who once said, "You're not our problem anymore," now wanted a key to the door she locked me out of. I didn't respond. Not out of pettiness, but because closure doesn't always come in conversation. Sometimes it comes in silence. I kept the house, lived in it, breathed in it, turned the old room they'd stripped of me into a calm sanctuary. Light lavender walls, soft white curtains, a reading chair by the window. No reminders of what they did. Only proof of what I built. I fixed the roof myself, painted the porch, even planted herbs in the back where the weeds used to grow. Every basil sprout felt like a breath of defiance. The neighbors smiled more now. One even said, "This place finally feels warm again." They had no idea. But what happened next? That was poetic. 6 months after I moved in, I got a letter. Handwritten, no return address, but I knew the handwriting. Mom. Inside was a folded flyer, cheap tear-off kind, with "Rooms for Rent" scribbled across the top. She circled one and wrote, "This is what we're down to. I hope you're happy." I didn't reply. Instead, I donated anonymously to the women's shelter on that same block, the same one they once suggested I go to. That's how you end a cycle, not with revenge, but with a reversal. I never wanted to punish them. I wanted peace, to come home and not flinch at every sound, to hang pictures of my choosing, to cook pasta without being told it was wasteful, to exist, fully, freely. And I did. They knocked a few more times, sent a birthday card with no signature, even left flowers once, cheap carnations, the kind they'd never buy for me as a child. I didn't throw them away. I let them wilt on the porch and kept walking forward. Not long after the wilted carnations, I started getting questions from people I hadn't heard from in years, old classmates, cousins who used to ignore my messages, even a few of Dean's ex-girlfriends. They all seemed to ask the same thing in different ways. "How did you end up with the house?" The polite ones asked with curiosity. The passive-aggressive ones wrapped it in surprise. One even said, "I thought your parents left it to Dean." I didn't explain. What mattered wasn't how I got it. It was what I did with it. Owning the house was never the victory. The real win was what it allowed me to reclaim: autonomy, safety, stability. I began working from home more often, hosting quiet gatherings with friends who felt more like family than the one I was born into. We had book nights and brunches. Laughter echoed through rooms that used to hold arguments and silences colder than any winter. I adopted a rescue cat and named her Ivy. She had the same wide, watchful eyes I did when I was younger, always bracing for the next blow. But here, we both rested, we both healed. And yet, the past never disappears fully. One afternoon, I found a manila envelope in the mailbox. No return address. Inside? Jurid. A single sheet of paper. Typed. No greeting, no closing, just words. "Families forgive. It's time you grew up." No signature, but I didn't need one. That sentence had my father's voice in it. That old tone, blame disguised as advice, but something in me didn't break. It didn't even bend. I folded the paper neatly and slid it into the recycling bin. Because forgiveness isn't owed, it's earned. And they never asked. Tasha came over that night. She noticed the slight edge in my voice as we sipped tea in the living room. "What happened?" she asked. I told her. Showed her the envelope. She didn't try to comfort me with cliches. She just nodded and said, "They're still trying to own you, even from outside the house." She was right, so I lit a candle, took a deep breath, and reminded myself, they no longer live here, not in these walls, not in my head, not in my heart. A year passed. The seasons rolled over the porch like quiet reminders. You're still here. I was 27 now, still in the same house, but I had changed. Healed, yes, but also fortified. My life was no longer built from scraps of their approval. It stood on foundations I'd poured myself. I was doing well, better than I let on. I had 3 agents under me and my own small brokerage. No office plaques, no fancy title, just steady work and a peaceful home. Until the reunion. It was Dean's idea. A casual get-together, he said, hosted at a mutual cousin's place. I didn't respond at first. Then curiosity got the better of me. Not to see them, but to see myself, with them, to prove to myself how far I'd come. So I went. No makeup. Neutral tones. Confident silence. They were already there when I arrived. My mother stiffened. My father looked at the floor. Dean gave a shallow smile, like we were old friends who drifted apart. I didn't smile back. The chatter faded when someone mentioned my name. She owns that property on Briarwood, right? Heard it flipped for double. I watched them try to hide their reactions. My father shifted in his seat. Dean's jaw twitched. My mother sipped wine, eyes cast down. No one corrected the story. No one claimed the house. Because they couldn't. Everyone in that room knew now. What they threw away, I reclaimed. What they thought would break me became my foundation. I didn't say a word, just excused myself early. Outside, the air was soft. The moon hung low over the city skyline, as if leaning in to listen. I drove home with the windows down, the night wrapping around me like a familiar song. And when I pulled into the driveway, my driveway, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt rooted, whole. It wasn't about proving them wrong anymore. It was about proving me right. I had always belonged, just not to them. 3 weeks after the reunion, I got another knock. But this one wasn't desperate. It was small. Cautious, I opened the door to find the twins. Now 17, teenagers with anxious eyes and mismatched jackets. They hadn't called, hadn't written, but there they stood, awkward, shifting on the porch I once wasn't allowed to step foot on. "Mom doesn't know we're here," the girl said quietly. "She's been different," the boy added. "We just wanted to see you." I didn't say much, just stepped outside and sat on the porch swing. They followed. No lectures, no breakdowns, just stillness, and a soft, quiet conversation that stretched into dusk. They asked questions about the house, about work, about what really happened when I left. I told them parts. Not everything, but enough. They didn't cry. But the boy whispered, "We always wondered why you weren't in any pictures." I swallowed hard. That was it. The whole truth, sitting in a single sentence. Erased, replaced, forgotten, until now. But even that didn't sting like before. Because they had come, and they saw me. When they left, I gave them a small key. Not to the house, to the little free library I built out front. I told them to take any book they needed. They smiled. And for the first time in years, I felt something like grace, not for the ones who hurt me, but for the ones still learning. I don't know if my parents will ever apologize. I don't need them to. This house? It's more than a structure. It's my answer to every time I was told I was too much, too sensitive, too inconvenient. It's my quiet reminder that you don't need permission to belong in your own story. You just need courage to stay in it, even when everyone else writes you out. Have you ever had to walk away from people you once called family? Drop your story in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about reclaiming your power. Send this to someone who needs to know they're not alone.